Okay guys, so this is the tutorial video for the question on macroecons that I just posted up. I hope you guys have tried the question yourself. If not, please pause this video right now so that you can go attempt it, and we can discuss about how we can solve this question after that. Okay, so assuming you have already done it, just let me go through with you how I would answer this question. So we'll start with part A first. Okay, what would be the closed economy multiplier after the change? Will it be greater or smaller than the previous multiplier? So when you say greater or smaller, obviously you're gonna have to compare two damn things. And obviously the two things is a system, a multiplier with a proportional tax system based on income, and the multiplier of the economy that has got a proportional tax system based on your consumption. Okay, so I think we're all very familiar on how to calculate the multiplier if it's a proportional tax system, so we'll just go through that later. We'll begin with the multiplier for the economy if, let's say, the government has implemented the change. Okay, so now your taxes are a function of your consumption rather than your income. Okay, so let's see how this is done. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I'm going to be doing a bit of writing. Okay, so here goes. In the past, your taxes used to be a function of your income. So that means no matter like how much you earn as income, the government is going to tax a proportion of that, and you're going to pay this amount, in taxes, right? So what's going to happen now is that instead of income, we're going to have consumption instead. Okay, so now consumption is the main function of your taxes. So we need to find out what this is. Okay, we need to find out what is the total amount of taxes so that you can find out what your consumption function is. Because a consumption function is made out of C0, your autonomous consumption, plus C1, your marginal propensity to consume, multiplied by your disposable income, which is Y minus your taxes. And now we know that this is in a function of C. So we need to find out what this is. We need to find out what this is before we can actually find out our entire multiplier. Okay, so here goes. Alright. Check this out, guys. So since you know that we need to find this, let's start with this first. Okay, so taxes, which is a function of consumption, is equals to, you're going to be spending on autonomous consumption, right? So you're going to charge GST on this shit. So there's going to be a proportion of this. Okay, GST now is like 7%. So for example, if autonomously the economy spends about $5 billion, so it's going to be 7% multiplied by that amount of money. Okay, C0. Okay, and plus same thing, the tax rate multiplied by the amount of consumption that is dependent on my disposable income. So how do I calculate that? So simple. My marginal propensity to consume multiplied by my disposable income. So what's my disposable income? Is Y minus the taxes that I pay, which is a function of consumption, right? So digest this a little bit. Okay, basically, to break it down again, the total amount of taxes that the economy pays is the autonomous consumption, the amount multiplied by the tax rate, and the disposable income multiplied by how much of the disposable income I'm going to spend, multiplied by that tax rate. Makes sense, right? Okay, so now basically what I need to do is to solve for this taxes, which is a function of C. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to do that. Everything is going to be mundane maths. So if you're good at maths already, you can screw this. Okay, but I'm just going to show you in case if you're not so good at maths like me. So here goes. Okay, so I'm gonna expand the bracket out. Okay. Damn, sometimes I just hate maths, man. Okay, so I'm gonna bring this to the other side. So this is gonna be taxes minus plus T C1 taxes equals to the rest of the chunk over here. Okay, and I'm going to factorize this guy out, the taxes out, so that I get this. Trust me, if you check out a subject guide, the solution is not as detailed as this. Okay, so I got this on this side. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by this figure over here, whatever's in the bracket, so that I can isolate my text function. Okay, everything looks a little bit, starts to make sense now, right? Okay, so I'm going to factorize the small letter t out, such that I've got this. Okay, and like I said, divide both sides by whatever's in the bracket over here. So it's going to be 1 plus this. Okay, alright, cool. So now that we've got this thing, we can finally find this thing. Okay, I say again, now that we've got this thing, we can finally find this thing. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so consumption is going to be like this. Okay, I'm going to have C equals to C naught plus C1 y minus the entire bunch of nonsense over here. Okay, you know guys, just want to share with you this. Try not to open up all the brackets all the time. You may find that it's a little bit easier if you just keep things in a bracket. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this in a bracket. Okay, because I want my consumption function to have an autonomous portion and a non-autonomous portion. So this looks good to me. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to multiply this in. So I've got this C1t bracket C naught plus C1 y, okay, over 1 plus t C1. Okay, great. So my next step is to basically factorize the entire equation. Okay, and what I'm going to factorize it by is I'm going to factorize it by this two items over here and this bracketed items over here. So you can see these two things are the same. So I'm going to take both of them out, and this is what I'll get. Okay, so I've got C naught plus C1y, right? So this is like factorize out the entire equation, and I've got this. This whole thing becomes 1. This becomes minus C1t over 1 plus this. There we go. See, it's much simpler now, right? And I'm just going to continue to simplify this. I'm going to get C equals to C naught plus C1y. And I'm going to multiply this 1 by 1 plus t dot C1 on top and below, because 1 equals to 1 over 1. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom. And therefore I get this. I get 1 plus t dot C1 minus this thing. Since they have the same denominator, I can put them together. Okay, so you can see this term and this term is the same. So I'm going to cancel it out. And I end up with something like this. C1y, whole thing divided by 1 plus t dot C1. Dot as in multiply by. Okay, so I finally got my consumption function. And to make it even look better, okay, I'll just write it out like this. Okay, C naught over 1 plus t dot C1 plus C1 over 1 plus t multiplied by C1 times y. So I've got a autonomous portion and I've got an unautonomous portion, a portion that relies on income. Okay, so fantastic. I've got this, and now all I need to do is just to find my multiplier. Sounds very easy, right? Okay, so I know that the question later on states that it's an open economy, blah blah blah. But I want to make things easy. Anyways, it says closed economy in part A, so thank God. Okay, so closed economy, right? Let's go. Okay, so I'm going to find a multiplier now. Okay, so I know that at equilibrium, AE equals to y, and y equals to C plus I plus G. Okay, so y equals to, what's my bloody consumption function? It's over here. Okay, C naught over 1 plus this thing. Okay, times y Alright, and then I gotta add this thing also, my investment function. I'm gonna put I1 times interest rates plus G naught. So government spending is exogenously determined. So likewise, now I'm gonna bring all the items with the Y over to the other side. Okay, so I'm just gonna derive my multiplier as per normal. If you have an issue doing this, it's not too late, but you got to do something about it. Okay, so the rest of the crap over on the right side, I can just call it A bar because it's autonomous, right? It doesn't depend on income, so it's great. So I'm gonna factorize Y out. I have 1 minus C1, and I got this thing equals to A bar. Okay, and then I'm gonna bring this to the other side. But before that, I'm going to simplify this guy first. I don't like seeing things like that. I like to see it under one fraction. So I'm going to do the same thing to that guy, to that number 1 over there. So it's going to be 1 plus tax multiplied by C1 minus C1. Okay, equals to A bar. And then let's see whether I can make this guy easier. Okay, no, it's alright. So Y equals to A bar. And I'm going to flip this around to the other side. So I get 1 plus T C1 over 1 plus T C1 minus C1. Alright. Okay, so basically this is the multiplier, right? So I want to make it look a little bit more pleasing to the eye. Okay, so let's see how we can do this. How about we divide both the top and the bottom by this figure. So I'm going to divide this by 1 plus T dot C1, and I'm going to divide the bottom by 1 plus T dot C1. Okay, so it's going to be A bar. This is definitely going to be 1. So I'm going to divide this thing. Okay, so before I make it look more complicated, let's just isolate this guy somewhere else so that we can do our workings elsewhere. Okay, so we got 1 plus T dot C1 minus C1. Dot means multiply again, okay? It's not decimal place. People actually ask me that. Okay, so this I can factorize the C1 out. Oh, sorry. Yeah, factorize C1 out. I get T minus 1 over 1 plus T dot C1. Okay, so looks pretty disgusting in the meantime. But let me see what else we can do with this. C1. Oh yeah, you know what? Screw this. Screw this. Sorry about that. Look at this. I can just separate this and this. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So it's gonna be 1 plus T dot C1 over 1 plus T dot C1 minus C1 over 1 plus T dot minus C1. So this equals to 1. And this is simply this. And ta-da, we got the multiplier, which looks a little bit more friendly to the eye right now. Okay. Alright, great. So we've got this. This is the multiplier, right? So basically our focus will be on this thing over here. Okay. So now let's do the same for a economy that has got a proportional tax system. Okay, I think this should be a bit of a good revision for you guys. Okay, so proportional tax system, let's go. Okay, so we've got AE at equilibrium equals to Y equals to C plus I plus G. We've got Y equals to our regular consumption function. Okay, thank God this looks more like it right now. I'm so happy working with the old stuff. And then we've got this. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna same thing, bring all the Y terms to the other side. Okay, so I've got Y, multiply this in, is going to be minus C1Y, and then this brought to the other side will be plus C1 times tax times Y equals to everything else is A bar. So I'm going to factorize my Y out. I'm going to get 1 minus C1 plus C1T equals to A bar. And then I got Y equals to A bar, 1 over 1 minus C1 plus C1T. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to factorize the C1 out. Okay, such that it will look like this. Minus C1, this becomes a 1 because you take out a minus, and this becomes a minus T. Okay, so great. I've got this And you know I want to focus on this, right? And I'm going to compare it to this guy here. So I got two multipliers, excuse me, here and here. So I need to see which one is bigger right now. Okay, so let's see. One has to be bigger. So let's compare C1 bracket 1 minus t and C1 over 1 plus t dot C1. Okay, so we're going to compare these two things. Excuse me. Okay, so how the hell are we going to compare these two stuff? Well, I don't know. Okay, I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's just say that I'm going to divide both of them by C1. Okay, so I'm going to divide both by C1. Okay, what I get is 1 minus t versus 1 over 1 plus t times C1. Okay, easy enough. And let me see what else can I do with this guy? How about I multiply? I multiply both sides by this one. So I'm going to multiply by 1 plus t dot C1. Okay, and I've got this 1 minus t multiplied by 1 plus t dot C1 versus 1. Oh, can you see that now it's getting much easier? Yep, it's getting much easier, right? So I'm going to expand the brackets out now. Oh shit, you can't see, I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm going to multiply, I'm going to expand this out now. So 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so 1 times that t C1 is this. This multiplied by this is minus t. This multiplied by this is minus t square C1 versus 1. Right? So I'm gonna see whether I can make this a little bit more easy. Let me see. Let's see here. Okay. So you got t. You got 1. Alright, minus both sides by 1. Okay, so minus by 1. Minus by 1. This one becomes 0. So this becomes t dot C1 minus t square C1 versus 0. Okay, so now the thing is that look at this over here. Okay, I'm gonna take out t from this whole equation. I'm gonna factorize t. I'm gonna get C1 minus minus 1 minus t C1 versus 0. Okay, so now I got negative here and I got negative here. So as you can see, there's something really weird about this equation over here, is that if this is minus 1, if the 1 here is negative, the whole thing has to be negative. Think about it. This is less than 1. And this is also less than 1. So C1 is less than 1, T is less than 1. And T here is also less than 1. So if you multiply everything out, the whole figure right here will be negative. Okay? So basically, when this whole thing is going to be lesser than 0, I can change this to less than. This is always going to be true. Okay? So since this is always going to be true, that means I bring all the way up here, I know that this is larger than this. So which means that my multiplier for the new tax system is bigger than the multiplier for the old tax system. Okay? So that's how it works. Basically, you just gotta, in any way you want. Okay, if you can come up with something simpler than this, fine. But to me, from here, it just makes a lot of sense already, because you got something that's a decimal here. So all these things are just gonna make this whole figure negative because of the minus 1 over here. It's a little bit messy here, but yeah, you know what I mean. Because of this minus 1 over here, everything is going to be negative. Okay, so I've spent 20 minutes on, like, part A. I think we should go on to part B right now. And we're gonna browse. We're gonna fly through part B, because part B, part C, and part D, because it's relatively easy already. Okay, cool. So analyze the effect of the change on the open economy without capital mobility and a fixed exchange rate regime. Okay, so without capital mobility. Okay, so no cap mobility means that your capital account equals to 0 all the time, so there's no capital account involved. So what we need over here is, okay, we got this, it's interest rates, we've got your IS curve over here, we've got your LM curve over here, and we have your NX line over here. NX line equals to 0. Okay, so we've got this is Y naught. Initial interest rates R naught, so initial equilibrium 0.8. Okay, alright, so what happens when the multiplier increases? The answer is your IS curve is going to shift to the right, okay, and then it's going to be steeper also. Now, if you don't know how this works, just let me share this with you again, a quick revision. This is Y, and this is aggregate expenditure, so you got your Keynesian cross diagram over here. This is A equals to Y, which is 45-degree line, and initially you have your aggregate expenditure here, giving you an initial equilibrium of Y naught, okay, given that interest rates were at R naught. So how to derive your IS curve? Just simply increase your interest rates to see a change. And what's happened? When interest rates increase, investments are going to fall. Therefore, your output is going to therefore your AE is going to fall, and therefore output falls. So this is going to shift down, and then you've got a new level of output at Y1. Combine the two lines, you're going to have this thing over here. Okay, so now what happens when the multiplier increases? Okay, I'm going to use this as a gauge, so this is going to go up. Okay, it's going to be steeper, and my new level of output is going to be at Y2. And how do I know which corresponding interest rate it should be? It should be at R naught. So you look at R naught, it's over here. I'm going to have a flatter IS curve. Okay, so you should already know this by now. So this is what's going to happen. Your IS curve is going to shift out and it's going to become flatter. You're going to have something like this, IS1. Okay, so the economy moves from point A to point B. My new equilibrium output is Y1. Interest rates has risen to R1 in the short run. Okay, so what has happened right here? Okay, we see that, okay, output has increased. So when output is increased, you know that my imports are going to increase. And when my imports are going to increase, what happens is that my current account is going to be less than 0, because your current account is your exports less your imports, right? So when my current account is 0, what I'm going to see is that my real exchange rate is going to be expected to depreciate, right? So we see in this question that there's a fixed exchange rate regime. So what does the economy do to prevent, what does the government do to prevent the depreciation of the domestic currency? They decrease the money supply, right? So what they do is essentially this. Okay, check this out. So this is the quantity of money, quantity of domestic money. This is the price of domestic currency. Demand for it, supply for it. So when you're importing a lot, basically you're giving the world a lot of your currency, right? So there's an increase in the supply of your domestic currency. The price of your domestic currency falls, therefore it depreciates. So to maintain it here, what the government does is that it buys back currency such that it increases demand for it. It moves up here, therefore it's here. So you see, to increase the demand for its currency, what the government does is that it goes to the forex market and it buys back all its own currency, and in exchange, it gives foreign reserves. So by buying back all its currency, the money supply circulating actually falls. That's why your LM curve shifts up until you have NX equals to 0. So this is LM1. Output is going to reverse this way. Your new rate of interest is going to be R2. Okay, so when your income falls, your imports is going to fall again. So therefore you got CA equals to 0. So this is part A. This is part B. Simple, right? Okay, so now we're going to move on to part C. This video is taking a bit long now. I've run out of paper, so let's do part C now. So part C, analyze the effects of the change in the open economy with perfect capital mobility with fixed exchange rate. Okay, now this is going to be my favorite. Okay, now you see why. So same thing, I've got my initial IS-LM equilibrium. This is my LS. This is my LM. So perfect capital mobility, I have a straight line across, and my balance of payment equals to 0 is along this line. My domestic interest rates are the same as my foreign interest rates R star. And initial equilibrium gives me output of Y naught. This is point A, right? Okay, so same thing. Just to remind myself, fixed exchange rate system. Okay, so IS curve is going to shift right and become flatter, just like that. IS1. Okay, and my new output is going to be Y1. This is point B. And my interest rate is now at R1 domestically, and this is more than the foreign interest rates. Okay, now here's the interesting part. We know that at point B, okay, at B, output has increased, imports has increased, therefore my current account is less than 0. Okay, and at the same time my interest rate has increased, there is an inflow of capital, therefore my capital account is more than 0. And because this is perfect capital mobility, the effect of the capital account on the balance of payment is going to be much greater than the current account. So therefore my balance of payment is going to be eventually more than 0. Now think about it. You know, assets are free to flow anywhere they want. So the amount of capital coming in, the volume itself is definitely more than whatever you have on the current account. So that's why at the end of it, my balance of payment is more than 0. You should know that your balance of payment is actually your KA plus CA. That's why it's more than 0. So when my balance of payment is more than 0, what I will see is that my domestic currency is expected to appreciate. Okay, so this is expected to appreciate. What happens in a fixed exchange rate system, okay, is that the LM curve, okay, the government is going to intervene, right? The government is going to intervene, so I'm going to use green. Okay, the government is going to intervene, and what the government does, okay, let's say that, okay, let's explore why this is going to appreciate, okay? So we've got quantity of money here, domestic money, and price of domestic currency over here, demand and supply. Okay, so when there's a lot of assets coming in, what people got to do is they have to buy our local currency, convert their currency into local currency before they can put that money into our assets. So therefore, the demand for domestic currency increases. Therefore, what happens is that you have an appreciation. So what the government does to maintain this level is that they are going to increase the supply of domestic currency. How? By selling, by basically buying up all these foreign reserves and putting in domestic currency in exchange. So when they put in domestic currency in exchange, the money supply circulating around the economy increases. Therefore, the LM curve shifts down until it reaches this point, LM1. Okay, and we are at point C. Here we have Y2. Okay, there's a new level of output, and interest rates has dropped to R2, and it is equal to the foreign exchange rate. Okay, now this is the thing. Listen very carefully. Your BOP, your balance of payment, is going to go back to 0, but the mistake is this. People are going to assume that your current account is going back to 0 as well. Your capital account is going to go back to 0 as well. Okay, for me, I disagree with this. What I feel is going to happen is this. Okay, so now I see that output has increased, so Y has increased further, so imports has increased further. So don't you think that since your current account initially, since yours is negative, your current account now is going to be even more negative? So if this is going to be even more negative, how the hell are you going to get a balance of payment equals to 0? You need a capital account that is going to be more than 0, correct? So the thing is that the misconception is people are going to say, oh, interest rates fell, therefore there's a capital outflow, and therefore my capital account is back to 0 again. Now this doesn't make sense, man. You see, the thing is that if the rate of return has gone down, why would you take your money out here and put it back to the foreign country which give you this return? Okay, so I mean, yeah, the interest rates went up to here, so people are going to be flooding the money into our economy, right? That makes sense. But when the interest rate falls, why the hell would they take the money back? It's the same rate of return. So just let me ask you a question, okay? If I'm going to put, there are two rooms right here, okay? There's room 1 and there's room 2. Okay, room 1 is 0 degrees Celsius and room 2 is 5 degrees Celsius. If you're human, you're gonna want to choose this room, right? So cool, you're gonna be inside this room. Alright, the thing is that if I'm gonna reduce the temperature now to 0 degrees Celsius, are you gonna bloody go back to this? Are you gonna go to this room? No. So you're just gonna stay where you are. So therefore, the capital account is still more than 0. Because the funds is gonna stay in our domestic country. They're not gonna flow out for this stupid reason. So you got this more than 0, you got this less than 0. This is gonna cancel this out. Therefore, your balance of payment is equals to 0. Okay. So now this is something that is that I would say is common sense, but not meant it's a little bit hard to think about it, right? So just take note of this. I think if you can argue it this way when you answer a question like this, it's gonna give you a lot of credibility. Okay, so let's move on to the last one. Basically, it's the same thing, just that it's got a flexible exchange rate. I don't want to spend so much time on this. Okay, it's very, very straightforward. Trust me, it's very, very straightforward. Okay, so this is what happens. Okay, your IS curve shifts to the right. Now, the dynamics is as such. Because there is a fixed exchange rate system, there is not going to be any short-run effects. There are no short-run effects. The government notices this immediately. It immediately increases its money supply to LM1. Okay, therefore we are over here. Okay, so sorry, this is flexible. Oh my god, damn it. sorry. This doesn't happen. Okay, what happens is that once this goes to here, okay, point B. Okay, this is Y. So this increases to this level. So you got Y increase. Your imports are going to increase. Your capital account is going to be less than 0. Okay. Your exchange rate is going to increase as well to R1. So R has increased. So there's inflow. KA is going to be more than 0. So your currency is going to appreciate. Right. So currency appreciate. Currency appreciation. Okay. What happens is that your exports are going to go down, your imports are going to go up, so your output is going to go down, your IS curve shifts to the left. Boom, it just goes back here. Of course, there is the new slope there. Okay, so that's what excuse me. So that's what happens for part D. Now, if you're gonna ask me, okay, so what happens to BOP then? What is it exactly that makes BOP 0? Okay, because output is gonna go back to 0, so you're saying that okay, this portion over here is gonna cancel out because this is gonna give me CA more less than 0, correct? So this is gonna cancel out this part, right? So if this is gonna cancel out this part, then you know what? So it's not gonna cancel out. It's still gonna be less than 0. So basically, this moves instantaneously. Okay, there is no short run or long run. Basically, while currency is flowing in, the currency is already appreciating. So these two things happen at the same time. So it's basically at a blink of an eye this happens. Okay, so that's part D, and that's the tutorial question. I hope you've gained a little bit from this. I'll see you again in the next video.